Morning. My name is Eddie Bush. I happen to have a granddaughter in here somewhere. I don't know. Oh, there she is. Anyway, I'm an ex-sailor. Was in the Navy 1961 to 1969. Hopefully you all can hear me. I'm speaking as loud as I can. And my first tour in the Navy was in Heavy Attack Squadron 2. And we had light bombers, and that's up on the screen is a picture of one of our planes. I did not fly the planes. I worked in air operations. My job was to keep track of the planes. So when they were out on missions, I had this big board, glass board. I would stand up with grease pencil, and I would write on there the plane number, the pilot's name, their location, and it was kind of an easy job. Can you go to the next small one? This picture was taken aboard the USS Coral Sea, which was an aircraft carrier that I was stationed on, showing the launching of the planes. They're launched on what's called a catapult, which is done by steam. Steam pressure is built up on the catapult. The planes are attached to a device on the catapult. They push a button which releases the plane, and the plane is launched. A very short distance. It's going from almost 0 to about 150 miles an hour within a second or two. And it does put you back in the seat. It does, you feel it. I don't have pictures of any of the landings, but I was fortunate enough to have this one. We went to Vietnam. I was there early. Vietnam conflict actually started in 1958. I was there in 1963. We pulled into a port. It was actually undisclosed to us. It was supposed to be top secret. I got a feeling it was Cameron Bay, is my gut feeling. And never saw any action, but I was handed a rifle and told where to stand and said, if anybody comes near the ship, you shoot them. So fortunately, I didn't have to. I was one of the fortunate ones. After I was aboard this ship, if we can go to the next one, this is one of my favorite pictures. This is pulling into Pearl Harbor in 1963 on our way over to Vietnam. This is the USS Arizona Memorial. Yes? Right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you have. Yes, you've seen me. Yeah, I recognize you. Such pretty young ladies in this class. But this is USS Arizona, and if you ever get a chance, and I know at your age you're not just going to get up and go, but as adults, if you ever get a chance, go and visit the Arizona. The Arizona was one of the ships that was sunk during the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. Yes, ma'am. But the big ship behind there, that was the aircraft carrier I was stationed on. And I really enjoyed our cruises. We visited many ports. I got to go to Sydney, Australia, which was probably the highlight of my career. But I got to go to Australia, been to Hong Kong, Philippines, Japan, Okinawa. And we could go to maybe the next picture, and This is Operation. I think this picture was taken in 1962. It's replenishment at sea. It gives you an idea of the size of the aircraft carrier compared to the other ships. And what they do is they go alongside one another. To make it simple, they kind of just throw ropes over, and the ships are connected to one another, and they send supplies back from these ships over to the big ship. And this is generally done at least once a week. This is how we get our toothpaste, our toilet paper, our hairspray. Well, we didn't have hairspray back then because you don't have hair back then. But That was an interesting picture. And we got, and I hope I'm making sense to all of you. I'm maybe a little nervous. This is the second ship I was on. This is the USS Sylvania. It's a combat storage ship. It is a supply ship. And on this ship, we would go alongside the other ships, and virtually you throw a rope across. You actually had an individual that stood with, I think they're called a bolo, and he would swing this bolo and throw it across to the other ship. Somebody at the other ship would catch the bolo, and then they would pull it over, and it was attached to a heavier cable, and they would pull it over, and then they would latch the ships together. Doubt if I ever had any pictures of that. But anyway, that's the combat storage ship I was stationed on. Now, this ship took me to Italy, Gibraltar, France, Greece, Malta. So I've been all over the world. I've been both sides, south, east, west of the world. Sailed up through the Aleutian Islands, up around Anchorage, Alaska, up in that area. I guess I don't know if I got much more to tell. That's another picture of the same ship. That's another picture of the Sylvania, the combat storage ship. So I guess at this point I can just take questions. I don't know. We'll start over here.
When you were in the SS, when you saw the SS Arizona,
yes.
They, like someone else said, they started with so much oil in the U.S. Pacific Fleet that it still leaks.
It still leaks to this day. The Arizona still leaks oil that was on the ship at the time that it was sunk. It's a very slow leak. You can see it when you're standing on here. You can see the oil trail. And from my understanding, being that this was years ago, my understanding, it still does it today. Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever go up to Antarctica?
To Antarctica? Where did you say, Antarctica?
Uh-huh.
No, that's too cold for me. No. No, I've never been up to Antarctica. No. Yes, sir.
When did the Vietnam War start?
The Vietnam War, actually, the starting date officially is 1958. That's when we first sent Army advisors to Vietnam. We didn't get caught up in, I don't know what what I want to say, but we didn't get caught up real heavy in it until the mid-60s, the quagmire, that's what I wanted to say. We didn't get caught up until the mid-60s. From about 1958 to the early 60s, we mostly had advisors and trainers and some combat troops in Vietnam at that time. But during the course of the Vietnam conflict, which I believe ended in 1972 as far as our part goes, and Vietnam fell in 1975, if I remember correctly. But from 1958 1972, I believe there was 58,000 casualties, deaths of American servicemen. Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen the Mighty Mo?
See, the Mighty Mo?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I've been on it. I've been on.
Complete replica.
Really? It was in Seattle, Bremerton, Washington. I was up in Seattle, and I went aboard her. Yes, it's a big battleship. Yes, ma'am.
What started the Vietnam War?
The Vietnam War was started, and I could be wrong. You've probably got teachers in here that knows more about the history of it. But it's the Americans' anti-communism stance after World War II. After World War II, communism, Russia primarily was trying to take over most of Europe, and our politicians didn't want this to happen. So when Korea happened, it was the same thing. It was Russian-backed North Koreans' invasion of the South Korea. We took a stance there, and that ended in an armistice, a truce, not not actually. In fact, I think we're still officially at war with Korea. Vietnam was the same way. The Chinese and Russian-backed North Vietnam was trying to invade South Vietnam, and we took a stance against anti-communism. During the 50s and 60s, communism was the worst thing that could happen to anybody. Our government taught us that it was the worst thing that you'd ever want to be involved in was a communist. It's not so much now, I don't think. I think we've got different things we're worried about, but I hope that answered your question. Yes, ma'am.